frankly, a lot of you did so many cool things. But you spent a lot of time on the agency side, right? And then, since have transitioned to brands and had some brand experience in the past as well. But I'd love to dive into the agency side just for a minute and just talk about, what you learned there. Is that something that you would recommend to other people as a career path? Would love to hear about that a little bit.
Yeah, I loved working at the agency, on the agency side. I spent many years at Weber Shandwick, which is a global public relations, global communications firm. And what is so special about Weber Shandwick in particular are the people. One person, when I look back at my career, who had such a big impact was Gail Hyman, who's the global president and CEO of Weber Shandwick. And what I learned from her, I first started working there in 2003. And from 2003 all the way up to 2015, a different port. I was there 3 times. I think they call it a boomerang. But because I loved the people so much, and I loved her so much. And not just her as an individual, but she's a brilliant strategic storyteller. And you looking back, kind of back to what you're saying about the decades, but looking back in your career and the people who have impacted your career, not just from a like a management standpoint, but truly from as a teacher. I learned from her by her instruction, but then also just by watching and being involved in client work or new business pitches, watching how she thinks and how she thinks strategically about sort of how you can understand a brand's business. And then by understanding a brand's business or a brand's objective to move the business forward, whatever that objective may be. But then where does storytelling, where do communications, where does marketing play into that? Where does the big idea play into that? So that it's not separate. And I do think you have to learn that. People throw around the word strategy. Oh, we have brand strategy, but do you really understand what that means? And how does it impact driving the business forward? And then how does it ultimately drive what your marketing communication strategy is going to be? And I think had I not truly learned that, because we would learn it whether it was working with Unilever as a client, and I worked with Unilever, Chobani, Amazon, Sonos, and you would sit on these interagency teams. And so I was working alongside, I was in my early 20s working alongside major ad agencies, digital agencies, shopper marketing, et cetera, and seeing how it all comes together. But then also doing new business pitching, whether it was Best Buy, Yahoo, Walmart. When you go in to pitch a new business, you can't just flash up an idea because the brand team is going to see right through that. So going through the process and having the privilege to work alongside the leaders of the agency and seeing how they think of like, okay, this is Best Buy, this is Walmart. We are going to come up with this concept to pitch the business, and then seeing how it works, why it works. It was invaluable. And truly I remember being in the Best Buy pitch and like, not just in the room, but in the development of the plan and working side by side with her. And that's how I learned to think about truly looking at, okay, this is the business objective. This is the problem at hand. Strategically, this is how we have to approach it. And then from there, that's where the plan falls. And if you don't think about that sort of roadmap of an objective, strategy, and tactic, you could do anything. And especially today when there's so many potential tactics, do an Instagram, do programmatic. It becomes a tactic soup, and it doesn't actually do anything to move the brand forward.
Yeah.
So that's what I find is invaluable. And
that's
the other
a
thing
lot
that's
of
interesting.
Pressure. Or sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing that's interesting, because I didn't grow up in a sort of, brand marketing, formal marketing background. I don't have an MBA, but I did learn from a communications background. But I think today's marketing is so fundamentally different than what yesterday's marketing used to be, that you have to understand the power of a brand message, the power of storytelling, to then usher that big idea through and to sort of cut through the noise. And like, how does that big idea land and resonate across all these different touch points that the consumer, community, individual, human, whomever, that they have, like whatever's taking their attention. And if you don't have them all threaded together, like a strong story, like what we would do at Weber Shandwick, it doesn't break through. And then it just becomes you're just doing a bunch of stuff. And I think brands very
No,
easily
I know.
fall into the trap of doing a bunch of stuff because there's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot
Can
of
be
shiny
distracting.
pennies. Correct. And now I'm not saying don't try it. Like definitely try the new things. But when you try it, make sure your brand comes through and resonates. Make sure your big idea, whatever that idea may be, like how does it manifest on this platform or this idea or this thing? And that's the secret, I think, to really strong marketing programs. And I'd like to say, because of my communications background, that's where one of my strengths lie versus maybe a more traditional marketer, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talked about a lot, right, at the genesis of Tribe was that, what's occurred is the cost to publish content, right, has dropped dramatically. So, 20 years ago, publishing Glamour magazine, very expensive, costly, design, print, sell, whatever. And now you can, almost anybody can be a publisher, right? You've got access to the internet and a phone. You can compete directly with Glamour magazine if you want to. And so what that's resulted in is just a significant increase in the number of publishers, be it individuals, brands, retailers, whatever. And so communications as a function, or PR as a function, has taken on a significantly increased importance over the last 10 or so years in particular. And so, that background you have there seems super, super valuable for today's market. I mean, just worked out super well.
It's been, and back to what we were saying, like it's something that I love. And I went back and forth from brand to agency because I loved being at an agency so much. I love storytelling. I love working with all of the different brands, that it was hard for me to ultimately decide, do I want to be a agency lifer or a brand lifer? And as much as I could just come up with ideas and concepts all day long, I really loved watching them come to fruition. And so I think I had my first real experience doing that when I was the head of integrated marketing at Bliss.
Yeah.
And in New York. And but I think I'm a brand person now, because it's so rewarding to come up with these concepts or things or partnerships or have someone's vision and bring it to life. I've been fortunate to work with so many amazing founders and partner with them to say, okay, you have a brilliant idea. Let's see how can we bring this to life so that it really moves the needle.